Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Aaron Swartz podcast. This is episode 2, and we're very excited to be doing this. We're going to doing this once a month on the middle Saturday, and the first hour is all about Aaron history and looking back at his writings and actually starting to analyze things a little deeper than we usually get a chance to in just a short presentation at Aaron Swartz Day. And most of this podcast so far, especially, has been created by members of the Aaron Swartz Institute in Brazil. And I just want to make sure to get, Andre Vinicius Leal Sobral in the bottom screen there. And you met him last week. And then this week we have Bruna Shinohara. And did you finishing your PhD or did you already finish it?
I finished, yeah.
I just congratulations then. Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
So I wanted to make sure to get that right because wow, that's like so much. And she just got her PhD in quantum computing. And so we're going to have a presentation from Andre talking about Aaron's political writings. And then we're going to move on to a presentation from Bruna on open source quantum computing. And just a reminder that the difference from this podcast and sort of Aaron Swartz Day events where we have speakers all day and stuff is that we're really trying to give a chance to connect with viewers and give you a chance to ask questions. You don't have to wait till the end to ask questions, and really be part of the conversation as we move forward, both teaching people about Aaron and then also applying sort of the Aaron perspective to projects that are happening now. And the Aaron Swartz Institute is doing all sorts of amazing things. And it's really exciting for me to be able to collaborate with them. So I'm going to circulate this link around while I let Andre take it away and tell us about Aaron's political writings.
Okay, good night, everyone. Thanks for having me here again, and I hope to continue coming and talking about Aaron every day from this podcast forward. And I have prepared a presentation. I'm going to share my screen now. And we're going to be talking about this reimagining politics in Aaron's writing. So I had this very big research that I explained a little in the last podcast. And in my efforts to understand Aaron and his way of thinking about politics and everything, I was always trying to find this inspiration that made Aaron write or think what he did. And during this research, I just started selecting all the texts that he had references. So I'm going to bring a few of them here while talking about American politics. This will be important since this is electoral year. We're going to have the presidential campaign. So we can have this almost like an insight, not of a programmer or a computer scientist, but of Aaron as an applied sociologist. That's how he called himself. So when we're going to start talking about this vision of politics that Aaron had, we can start in 2004, so a long time ago. Aaron was just a young man, and he was writing his blog about gerrymandering. I don't know how familiar everyone in the audience is with this term.
Too familiar.
Yeah, I know that is very common to hear in the news and some discussions about how it's almost like a political scandal. And Aaron
not almost. It's a political scandal. Yeah, just to be clear, here in the United States, I can only speak for the United States. Carry on.
Yeah, it's because it's a complicated matter because it happens very often. Every 10 years, state legislature draw electoral districts that are contiguous. They share the same territory and have the same population. So it's a way of dividing the electoral colleges. So it's something that has to happen according to American Constitution. but the way it happens is the problem. So that's why Aaron is putting there how politicians steal votes and you can return them. So the first thing that needs to be distinguished that Aaron is concerned is that there's a difference between popular votes and electoral votes, in the sense that it's not only the vote of the citizen in the president that counts, but the vote of the citizen helps to elect a delegate that will vote for the presidential election. I brought a little video. It's like 2 minutes or something like that. I don't know if it's okay if I can show it now. What do you think, Lisa?
Yeah, actually probably not. It looks like
it's not necessary.
Yeah, just say what the video says, because I'm not sure and I don't want to get a
so it's just the explanation of gerrymandering. Gerrymandering comes from a politician. The term gerrymandering comes from a politician called John Jerry.
Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it.
Okay.
Go ahead and do it. It's fine.
So,
if I have to re-upload, we'll know why.
First,
it's okay.
Let's start with Government 101.
It's a news clip.
In the United
it should
States,
be fair use.
Each state elects a certain number of representatives based on the state's population. The larger your population, the more representatives you have. Each representative represents a district, or a geographical area including its voters. Ideally, we want to have a range of representatives who reflect the political views of the population across the state. But how do we decide who gets to vote for each representative? Let's look at an example. Suppose we have a very tiny state of 50 people. 30 of them belong to the blue party and 20 belong to the red party. And just our luck, they all live in a nice even grid with blues on one side of the state and reds on the other. Now, let's say we need to divide the state into 5 districts. Each district will send one representative to the House to represent the people. Fortunately, because our citizens live in a neatly ordered grid, it's easy to draw 5 lengthy districts, 2 for the reds and 3 for the blues. Voila! Perfectly proportional representation, just as the founders intended. Now, let's say instead that the blue party controls the state government, and they get to decide how the lines are drawn.
I don't think the founders intended that.
Rather than draw districts horizontally, they draw them vertically, so that in each district there are 6 blues and 4 reds. With a comfortable blue majority in the state, each district elects a blue candidate to the House. The blues win 5 seats, and the reds don't get a single one. Oh well. Finally, what if the red party controls the state government? The reds know they're at a numerical disadvantage, but with some creative boundary drawing, they can slice the blue population up such that they only get a majority in 2 districts. So despite making up 40% of the population, the reds win 60% of the seats. Not bad. This process of redrawing district lines to give an advantage to one party over another is called gerrymandering, and it's nothing new. The term gerrymander is named after early 19th century Massachusetts Governor Elbridge Gerry, who redrew the map of the Senate's districts in 1810 in order to weaken the opposing Federalist Party. Our example is, of course, a huge simplification. In the real world, people don't live in neatly ordered grids sorted by political party. But for politicians looking to give themselves an advantage at redistricting time, the process is exactly the same, and the consequences are very real. Gerrymandering is at least partly to blame for lopsided representation in the House seen in recent elections. And, it's been argued by the president, for political polarization, since representatives don't have to compromise hardline views in order to win seats.
All right, there's just a touch of propaganda mixed in with the facts on that coming from the Washington Post, which is why I was worried about showing it more than anything. But the important thing is that the Republican Party gradually took over the governorships of many of the 50 states, and then were in control of the elections. And it was another one of these situations where it was like the honor system, that even though you were the governor, you weren't going to slant things for your party. And there was just this respect, I don't know, value, morality. We all just laugh at it now, right? Because nobody does it. But that was the plan. And so, yeah, that's gradually, that's how this became such a problem, in the United States, it was a long game too, boy. It took them like 20 years to pull it off. This is a plan that was put into effect way back when, George W. was president. You know, it took years for it to get to the point where it's now. I remember people trying to tell me about it. You know, people trying to get my attention about it like it was important, you know, And I was just like, what are you talking about? You know, so anyway, I just wanted to add that to the situation. And as far as what the founding fathers intended, you and I have talked about this. We don't think that, oh, they intended for everything to be fair. The Electoral College looks like the little thing that the founding fathers put in sort of to weigh things back to the, you know, rich and powerful, that when there might be more common people than rich people in a certain state that are going to vote, that we're going to vote a certain way. So just to be clear, you know, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing this show, is to actually be able to track this election and to be tracking the things that lead up to that night in the Electoral College and stuff like that. So I just had to say all that to contribute to that video. So now go on, Andre.
In the 1800s, there was this political scientist called Alexis Tocqueville, and he was wondering how America as a democracy would fare
in the future. Move on to the next slide so we can.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So Tocqueville was concerned mostly about how there was a risk in America of creating a tyranny of the majority. And most of these systems that we're talking about, like gerrymandering, the states' division and these indirect votes to the president, it was created in a way to try to soft or dismantle this capacity of creating a tyranny of the majority. And we actually see that it's not really how it works, but it's like the inspiration when he says the founding fathers thought that or wanted that. It's abstraction that makes no sense. But it was a concern at the time because most of the countries had monarchies and America was a democracy, so this had to work somehow. So what is Aaron concerned?
It's a little bit, you know, how do we have a government that's by the people and for the people without having to actually answer to the people?
Yeah.
A little bit, right?
Yeah, it's kind of strange, man, because why would you be concerned of what the people want? So they were using like this idea that the elites, they have a better understanding of the world, like they're more educated, so they are more capable of governing, and the people have passions. Yeah, so if they know what's best and the people are uneducated and have passions, they will be like mobs, and they will be disorderly, and they will be dangerous.
Ding, ding, ding! You're hitting numbers like on my white man's burden bingo card. Here,
it's like the French Revolution. They're expecting the people to grab arms and kill everyone, so they're concerned.
They don't know any better. They can't help themselves.
Yeah, if we give them too much power, it's complicated. So
okay, great. Just wanted to clarify we're on the same page on that. Okay, continue. Please continue.
What was Aaron concerned when he was writing this text? He was trying to tell the reader that we need to understand politics as a rules-based game. So this is Aaron as a hacker trying to imagine that. So if you have these ways of working in politics, how can we tweak the rules or make the game more, or to our benefits, more fair or more understandable? So this is the first thing he's concerned. The second thing he's concerned is like how observing rules can transform the results. So you said that the Republicans had 20 years working these maneuvers to create different districts. So if you pay attention, it may make a difference in the long run. And the simplest solution to gerrymandering as a problem, Aaron states, that is take redistricting out of the hands of the partisan state Congress. So he's trying to propose a solution as something that shouldn't be in the hands of those people in the first place. So this is a broad view of what he's talking
as about. Always pointing out the obvious.
Yeah.
Right?
What?
It's what he does. He points out the obvious. Why would it ever be, if you had two people running against each other, why would you put one of them in charge of the elections?
It doesn't make sense. So how he was thinking as a computer scientist, a hacker, or a developer, he was thinking New computer software allows whatever party controls the state legislature to redraw districts so finely and accurately that of the 435 House seats, only about 30 are actually contested. So he was trying to say there is no dispute if you accept the system to be this way. Only 30 of the districts are contested. How this can be? So he was like trying to tell people that there is no election if you're trying to make this system the official one, and in the sense that we need to contest this. And the second thing that he says in the text that is quite revealing for me is that he says the entire election happens in primaries, attended mostly by hardcore party voters who end up skewing candidates to the political streams. We are watching this right now live with Donald Trump, that has been disputing primaries with the other Republican candidates, and most of them already gave up the run.
Yeah, so, I mean, the primaries are over. You know,
yeah.
It's so weird to be like, to get just a different example of the system, you know, kind of not working. And I wanted to give you this idea about how only 30 are actually contested. You mean that, and this happens a lot now, there's where somebody's got is so popular in a certain district that the other side doesn't bother putting up a candidate, or they put one up to say they've got one, but they don't really support it because they know they're not going to win.
Yeah, it's almost like that. If you have the districts drawn in a way that it's almost impossible to get a favorable result, there is no tie or close disputed race. So why would you make an effort? It's like the swing states. You know that those are the ones that define the election. The other ones are granted because of the way the things are divided.
So gerrymandering is redistricting gone wrong. It's redistricting. It's dishonest redistricting.
Yeah.
That's all it actually is. In terms of what they're doing
every 10 years, because there is census that try to account how many people have been born, where they're living. So this is the reason.
That's the reason for putting the map on the table.
Yeah, but why draw that way?
Yeah, so there was never any oversight, and it was always one of these, you know, honor system things where you would look bad as a politician. These things used to happen, people. I tell you, I was talking to my father about the Huey Newton trial, where he was released because the prosecuting attorney, a guy named Lowell Jensen, had a proper voir dire. Like, even though he was the prosecutor, he made sure that rules were followed that made the case fair, that led to a fair result. Like, you just don't have that stuff anymore, where somebody's got these morals that they want to do the right thing because they're thinking of their own reputation in the long run, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting now that pretty much, because when you talk to people about it now, they can't believe that it went on so long, allowing one or the other, you know, of the parties, you know, to have a say.
Yeah.
So
we also have to understand that this is a game or a dispute that is being redefined or redesigned every year. It's not like something that it's always been this way and doesn't change. So every new technology, like Aaron points here, like computer softwares, allow this kind of maneuvers in a more precise way, a different way that was possible before. The same way that like internet and WhatsApp or messaging apps on the phone can help people to get in contact with many voters that were unreachable before.
I'm sure AI is finding all sorts of ways of redistricting things, or, you know, being able to, you know, juggle things creative yet still technically legal ways. So got that to look forward to.
What I wanted to point in this part of the Aaron text about gerrymandering is that he's worried about political extremes. So why is he worried about this thing in a time that was no Trump yet? Like, why Bush or anyone else before was making him be concerned about political extremism?
Well, remember, he's old enough to remember Cheney and George W. And that was a crazy year. So if you were old enough, even he was 14, you know, I mean, that was the year we camped out in front of the Supreme Court. But I'm saying, if you saw the crazy shit that they got away with in 2003 when they first started that war, before reality calmed things down a little and everyone realized that they had been, you know, duped, basically, you see how crazy it can be. You know, you can see, because I tell you, before I saw it, I didn't believe it. Before I saw it that year, I didn't think it's like McCarthyism or whatever. They're telling the actors they can't make any statements on the Academy Awards. And I remember Susan Sarandon made peace signs, and it was like she was this radical person that had done this radical thing on the Academy Awards. And I'm like, is this 1955? What's going on? You know, so it's crazy, you know. So he saw that, is my point. And once you saw that, and you saw what Dick Cheney was able to do, and then the movies came out about what Dick Cheney did, you know, Vice, and so, because I had no idea, actually, the really genius things that he did in terms of setting up these things in the government so that someone like Trump could come in and take over. He did, you know. So it's really that long game, that setting things up so that future radical extremists can stand on the shoulders of your bad law, you know. We just don't have that kind of dedication here sometimes, you know, on the whatever, the good guy side. You know, it's not just Republicans and Democrats, because it's lazy Democrats too that are letting it happen. If they get reelected, it's sort of like one less fight, you know, for them. And it's like, oh, that's what we have here.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to point out, that Aaron was saying that this is no sudden change, that American democracy was healthy and suddenly Trump came out of nowhere. So this is a pattern that has been building up since way before.
Yeah, and taking careful notes of everything that could be exploited, and then collecting it all together, and bam, it's amazing.
And the primaries are something that not everyone is concerned about. They're mostly thinking about the dispute of the candidates, but not how the candidates are chosen. So Aaron keeps going with his analysis on this text, and he says, when one party gets a lead in the House, it is almost insurmountable, even when the other party wins the presidency by a wide margin. So he's concerned here that the popular vote doesn't elect the president, but the electoral vote does. So if you have cities like San Francisco, there's a big city with lots of people, they will have less representative strength in this dispute. It's like the way the electoral college is made underrepresents the urban centers that Democrats are stronger, and gives more strength to the countryside, some regions of the country that are not as populous.
Where they know better. This is the tyranny of the masses again, or whatever you were saying before, right?
Yeah.
This is we know better than them. Carry on.
It's hard to get things done when this important body is filled with essentially tenured partisans whose only serious challenge comes from someone more extreme than they are. So it becomes a race, Aaron is saying. If you are more extremist than the last one, you have more chance to get
this is the Republican Party right now. This is like, this is what we deal with every day, right? People will literally go against something that they said a couple months earlier, because the tide turns, or this whole thing with the wall, when they finally try to get money for the wall, the Republicans are all, wall? We don't want a wall. What are you talking about, wall? It's just like, really, it's funny. All right, go on.
So this is the wrap-up of this first text that I took for analysis, and we're going to go to another one. So I don't know if there's any questions now, or if the audience, if it's
any questions in chat. This is a good time. Anytime's a good time, but this is also a good time. And
there are some comments, but I'm not really sure where they came from.
Cyberpunkism said code as applied sociology.
That's a great comment, because we often think of computers and code as something like machine-like, objective, hard science. And when you see Aaron and how he deals with code, you can understand that code is just a language. So how can I translate politics into code? How can I translate our wishes as a people to something that can be disputed on the elections? It's just not only just what you hear someone says. So there's this race or this challenge of creating a democratic system that incorporates code and computers as instruments of democracy, not just as things that are in labs or in closed places that are away from the people. So there is not just a space for computers as entertainment or cell phones or smartphones, but there is a space for these machines to help us to be more represented, to be more vocal about what we want.
Interesting.
So I'm gonna continue.
Right. So let's go. Yeah.
Yeah. So Aaron takes a turnaround and shift his focus on the Sunlight Foundation. This is almost like a non-governmental organization, NGO, and it's concerned about transparency in government. And then we have Mike Klein, that is one of the founders of this foundation, saying that he created it because their generation thinks democracy isn't worth engagement or even respect. And Aaron is more concerned about how Web 2.0 is related to transparency and accountability and what really is happening there. So there is this strong contrast that we can see just in the beginning of the text, that Aaron doesn't agree with this kind of statement that their generation thinks democracy isn't worth engagement or even respect.
Yeah.
That's the kind of things that we hear on news that try to make us feel hopeless. Like
that's like them talking about the Gen Zers now, or
yeah,
whatever, you know,
and kids that don't want to work.
It's ridiculous.
Politics.
Yeah, yeah, and actually, for these generations that are actually taking it pretty well and have a pretty good attitude, considering the horrible situation that they have been handed, right? They're ready to fix shit. They're kind of like Aaron. I think Gen Z is definitely like very much has that spirit kind of baked in. Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry, I got excited.
It's a generation that has been dealt a very bad hand in the terms of what's possible for them. We have the climate crisis. We have the political climates in the sense of the extremism. We have wars going on. So there's a lot of reasons.
Yeah, they had the pandemic when they're trying to graduate from college. And it's just like, what else? What next? You know, for them. Yeah.
So I have this short video. I can just jump it because it's about how transparency works. And I think that I can try to resume it. Don't need to show that.
Yeah, these people get transparency.
The idea of government and transparency is often understood as something that the government is trying to show people how they work on the inside. Like, oh, look where we use our money. Look what we do to get some decision made. So it's like a goodwill gesture from the government. And the Sunlight Foundation is really trying to make these spreadsheets telling, as Aaron tries to describe, a federal funding Google Maps mashup, a congressional tag cloud, a video contest mocking of members of Congress, in the sense that this is a website that tries to show people where the money is going and making these relations of candidates and where the investment they get is used. So Aaron is kind of skeptical about this. He's not very sure that this is a good idea. So he writes, as a Web 2.0 developer, it's hard for me to see how even the best Web 2.0 site can have much of a positive impact on government. I don't know what you think about this, Lisa, but it's 2006, 2 years later from Aaron talking about the idea of gerrymandering.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I remember when I used to think if we had a website that made it easy to write your representatives, like the EFF has had for 20 years, you know, like that was going to fix everything. Like it's just, I've become so jaded. The things that I thought would help, I think they help if somebody's already doing something. I think that when I got Chelsea out of prison, that the web apps, you know, all the different everything and their mother that we used. We just used everything that we could on every different platform, and that's the only way that we were able to raise awareness. So you can raise awareness and stuff like that. But in terms of an election, that's hard. That's harder. And things can go wrong as quickly as they go right on these platforms. So you have to be careful. And so I think it's, and all these sites like Atlas of Surveillance and these great sites that give you information about where things are in your town and stuff like that. I think those are really good for people that already know how they feel and they already vote the same way every year, like me, who wants to get deeper into a topic. But if you're trying to change people's minds, they're not looking at spreadsheets and statistics. So I agree with that. Yeah.
So that's actually kind of what Aaron is concerned about. In a few years, he's going to be more precise and detailed about this, but we're going to get there. So he's here talking about this Sunlight Foundation. He says, we decided our saviors would be the power reviewers, the people who care enough about politics to slog through the data and then mass email their friends when they find something good. Even if our power reviewers find the smokiest of smoking guns and posts it on their extremely popular blog, without a larger political platform, it will only fuel the cynicism. So,
so that happened and nobody cared. We know that now, right? So
it's like
wah, wah. Yeah, it's so funny. We talk about that all the time. And, you know, this is also why I'll give my little whistleblower speech. Don't do it. Find another way. Protect yourself. Treat it like information you probably wish you didn't know. And you can forget about it, too. You can pretend you didn't hear it. And there's lots of things to do. If you have to give it to somebody, fine. I'm not saying not to do that. But you need an attorney now to help you figure it out. Because Paul Revere, things don't end up well for Paul Revere in the modern age. I love the analogy. I never even thought of it that way. That's really a great analogy, Andre.
Any of the whistleblowers had a very bad fate in the long run. None of them are
in the short and long run.
Or,
in the long run, actually, is what makes it seem like it can be okay for the like couple of people that aren't just rotting away in jail or dying, you know, or being tortured somewhere. You know, it's your family and friends and everybody that you think of. But this is an important question because when you find something out that people need to know, this is what made me a journalist, right? How do you get the word out in such a way without throwing your life away? That's the important thing. And there's different ways you can do it. You know, the EFF likes to talk about this. Cindy especially says, you know, you could go to a congressperson. Sometimes they can read things in the congressional records. You know, Dan Ellsberg did that for Pentagon Papers, actually. There's different ways, but the point is you want to do anything but throw it up and hope for the best, come what may. That's just like, you never, ever want to do that ever. Okay.
Aaron created the secure drop thinking about these things. How can safely give this kind of
Actually, you can use secure drop. Dun, 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 I always feel like Superman. You can use secure drop to upload it to the newspaper of your choice or the direct to a journalist that you respect. And then, and here's the important part, go on with your life like it never happened. That's the important part that people have trouble and people forget. And that means you can't tell a single person. You got to make sure you are anonymized using the library or something when you're connecting to Secure Drop, all these things. The Secure Drop website lets you know some pre-prep stuff. But I would be remiss without bringing all that up in this podcast while this is being discussed. So carry on.
But the great thing about Aaron reflection here is that he's concerned that we can't rely on people that are very dedicated to go through data and finding things and exposing things. We can't run a system based on these heroes or these larger-than-life political figures. So what can we do then?
Exactly, because it fuels the cynicism. And this goes into this thing about how both sides, there's no difference between both sides. I mean, both sides is literally like trying to kill people and the other side isn't. But like that's not where you want the two sides divided, right?
Yeah.
Okay, these guys aren't actually trying to just kill people outright. That you know, so yeah. But that fuels the cynicism is the big problem we have here with getting people to show up for voting. Like I said, Gen Z is actually pretty good about it, but it's a problem. Carry on.
We have this little video that I won't show too about transparency. Larry Markinson is the guy that wrote this book, Speaking Freely, that Aaron read.
Okay.
And this book is basically a lot of stories in the sense of that people that work on the White House and politicians give their stories about how they deal with lobby and how they deal with money and how it influences everything. So this is
was he impressed with this man?
Yeah, he was reading.
Okay, you can show the video then.
Yeah, but it's a kind of long video. It's like 6 minutes. I don't know if it will help very much.
Oh, okay.
Carry on. Show a little bit. So.
Okay, show a little bit. I just want to hear him talk. Sometimes it helps.
I think I started working out in transparency stuff in 1985 in Alaska. Convinced that if somebody was able to look in the filing cabinets that showed where state legislators were getting their campaign money, we'd discover who was really paying for politics in Alaska. And to do that, I had to buy a new Apple Macintosh and a database version 1.0 of whatever was out in 1985, I don't even remember, and then start taking stuff that was in filing cabinets, government filing cabinets, putting it into a database, and then using that data.
You can see here, that's the idea.
We love government documents and databases. Yay. That's what we do at Apple. That's what we do, and lots of things.
Aaron did this with the judicial records on the first thing that he tried to make public on the sense of the public knowledge. He helped an attorney to have access to public data on justice process that should be free, but they are paid on the internet. I don't remember the name now; it's just escaped my head. But this kind
Pacer, right? Pacer, I think.
You're talking about Pacer?
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the cases.
Yeah,
that's the case law. Yeah. The case law, which is still, you still have to pay for it. But there's a lot of ways now there's a plug-in that
to go around.
When you pay for one, you can allow a free version to be uploaded so that the next person that tries to get that document won't have to pay at least and stuff like that. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I didn't realize you're talking about Pacer. Yeah. Pacer, the Pacer thing was a big deal. And of course there's the famous Pacer experiment where they were letting people have free downloads in a library every 22,000 square miles or something. And Aaron had a friend that lived close to the library, and a couple million downloads later, and then those were uploaded to the Internet Archive so that they would be publicly available. And the Internet Archive didn't know it was coming. It's a really funny story. They just noticed that someone was uploading all this stuff, and they realized it was Aaron, and put somebody on the case to give him some extra bandwidth and stuff like that, so it could, happen faster and maybe more efficiently. But it's funny how these happen. When you look back on it, it looks like everything was arranged, right? Like the Internet Archive knew that Aaron was going to be doing this thing or whatever, right? But nobody knows. It's always just because Aaron's just doing it while he's doing something else. He's not letting everybody know, I am going to be uploading files to Pacer. He just does it, and you just have to, and you're just catching up, and then you're like, why is he doing this? That's always what it was for me. It was always like, Aaron's doing something else. Why is he doing this? And then you figure out what it is. Yeah.
This influence of this inspiration, it's interesting to see that Larry is worried here in this video about finding out what lobby is making, in the sense that lobbyism is legal in the United States. So these representatives from companies are buying politicians and their votes, influencing.
They've taken over Washington is what's happened, unfortunately. And it's they've put themselves for a while, they could be a problem, but they had this second-class citizen status that always made them not too much of a problem. Okay. In Washington. And then somehow, and I don't know how they did it. I kind of didn't pay attention and then came back, and all of a sudden they had all this power. They somehow made themselves indisposable in ways, and I can't think of how else it could be, but some connection to the donors, right? The lobbyists figured out, oh, if I personally am responsible for bringing in, $200,000 a year for this candidate, that candidate's going to do what I want now, because I can pull that funding, if I'm in the middle, right? So these lobbyists used to be walking around trying to get people to listen to them, basically. Okay. Like when I went to Washington in 2002 and I was talking to Gigi at Public Knowledge and learning about this stuff, and lobbyists were just a joke. They weren't anything to worry about. Okay. And that has all changed. You can fear lobbyists now. You can worry about what they're going to do because they're just in it for themselves. They may have leanings, but it's kind of all about the money. And when you have something like that, that's inserted itself in the political system, and instead of fighting back, both sides just learn to deal with it, because maybe it was just too sweet that year they needed money. And it's hard when you don't have any money and you're trying to run for office to turn down like a big pile of money.
Yeah. The more the communication technologies developed, like the internet and television and radio, the more powerful became the money that you invest in your campaign. So it's very hard to run against someone if you don't have all this money with you. So these actors, these lobbyists, they became even more powerful with time.
Yeah. And
Larry is worried here that you don't have the transparency applied to the lobbyists. You just
and that's why the super PACs, right? We have super PACs here in the United States that basically the transparency ends there, and everybody just switched everything over to super PACs, and now they're all being funded millions and billions of dollars by the super PACs, and we don't know. And it's funny, but because it's a, sanctioned thing, the super PAC, that Supreme Court decision that said, actually, you shouldn't do this. Do it this way. Do the same thing that you've been doing that we don't want for transparency reasons. And here's another way that you could do it. The whole thing was kind of weird.
Here's a few words of Larry that Aaron read on this book about transparency in the government. The higher the office, the stronger the role of money in determining who wins, who the winners will be. The unpleasant fact of life today is that ideas count less than bank balance. That early chase for the green has been dubbed the money primary. Do you realize that almost all the bills that are passed in the Congress and voted on have not been read by the members that vote on them? They haven't even read them. So he's like exposing this situation that the political system has been captured by money. So is America an oligarchy now? So we have to consider that democratic vote is less important than the power of money, the elites?
Yes. That happened.
So which company is also the government? That's almost like what's
that's different. It's not so that's a whole different game, right? It's a whole different game. I've actually been paying really close attention to that lately with all the AI stuff going on, because it's clear that the government wants to pick a few of the companies and sort of support them, and like they'll get the inside scoop or something from the companies as a result. I don't know what they're being promised, but they think there's something in it for them. And I'm reading ridiculous things like we'd have to register, I as an independent open source AI developer would have to register my model with the government to be able to do work. If it's a stronger model, what the hell does that mean? A stronger model? So first of all, whoever's writing this stuff, I'm not going to call them names, but they obviously don't have a complete understanding. So someone very high in the government that's writing publicly facing documents like that executive order, which makes no sense, okay, is publishing this stuff coming from the federal government that makes no sense. Okay. And they think it's almost like they gave up on understanding it, and they're just going to get in with a couple companies and hope for the best. You know what I mean? It's like, we made it with Lockheed Martin for 20 years. It'll be okay. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know what they think they're doing, but it's a silly approach. They need to open it up to more people, not less. They need to stop having these hearings with selected people as if only 10 people on the planet could speak for us. They are not speaking for us. You know, they're not speaking for developers at large. So it's easy to say, yeah, they're in together. But actually, Google and the tech companies, you know, this is new for them. Anybody even treating them not like a second-class citizen. You know, in the 2000s, they weren't making the money to where they were trying to stay non-political before they realized, what are we doing that for? We could make them do what we want, you know? So it's a complicated relationship.
They used to have a slogan, "Don't be evil," but they took it off.
Yeah. They stopped doing that. But the funny thing is that we all believed it. That's the funniest thing of that whole story, is that people like me and Cory Doctorow and Aaron, even Aaron. Now, Aaron was the first one. You know, he had the Google blog before anybody. He was the one saying, this company's doing very interesting things. What are they up to? What's going on? And he did his blog, and he ended up letting them, handed it over to them because he had a lot of people reading it, and he didn't care enough. He didn't want to be in charge of the Google blog if it was an actual thing that he had to like care about and put time into. So he just gave it up, gave it to him. So this is going to get really interesting with the government and money, you know, money having control over things, and also technology coming in and playing a more and more important role. And the biggest problem now is using technology for stuff it doesn't actually do, because you want to be able to tell your boss, you know, the reviews are coming in on all the Microsoft AI, and the people are saying it's not really doing what we thought. I mean, they promised them everything, so it wouldn't be hard to fall short if you look at their marketing materials. But, you know, my point is, like, just like this is saying, privacy financed elections altogether. Lots of people have been saying it should all be the same amount. Everyone gets the same amount. Like, that's never going to happen. It's a nice idea.
This is Aaron writing about it. After reading that book, he was like, we need to get rid of privately financed elections altogether. There is this same idea here in Brazil. We had a law that made possible to have the public funding of campaigns, but we couldn't get the banning of privately financed elections. So it's a
we'd never be able
mixed
to do
system.
it either here. Yeah,
I don't know if the Americas have some kind of public funding of campaigns. Do they have?
No. Well, they have. Everybody gets a certain amount. There is some publicly. The answer is yes. There is some publicly allocated amount. It's the thing you can donate to when you file your taxes. It asks you if you want to give $1 to that. It's not that much money, and there's nothing making it fair. So, and the other sides that have tons of money also get it. So that's, you know, that's kind of funny. But these are really important insights that he's making, just like we were talking before. Making important data available won't cause political change. It might cause other types of changes if it's a more direct connection, like the Bad Apple database that we have, trying to show when a cop that has police violence has been found, has a sustained finding of police violence in one city, to stop him from just moving to another city. Now, that's not political change per se, but when an officer steps in, when the chief of police steps in to protect an officer that has a record of misconduct when they come to town, like happened here in Antioch, California, that's a political move, right? The chief of police is now getting political, deciding to put his arm around this guy, while high school students were striking because they didn't want that policeman to work in their town. And the response from the chief of police was a newspaper article with his hand around the guy saying, we're happy to have him in our town. Okay. So things can get political, and the data can help. Like this anyway. So I'm just on I'm not saying it can't cause any change. I do kind of agree with him about political change. That's the fine point.
Yeah. What he's pointing here is that there is a need of change that is way bigger than what one piece of data can do. So he needs to have these structural changes that he alludes to. Changes to the culture of Washington must be structural ones.
Right. And this alludes back to something you were telling me about. We should wrap it up because we should let Bruna talk.
Yeah.
But in that you're probably at the end going to say in terms of how the participation in democracy is as important or more important than the actual voting process.
Yes, we're going to explore this better in the next podcast, but Aaron is slowly making his way to understanding that there is a problem in the system. It's not exactly the kind of thing that he's expecting a revolution or something, system shattering, breaking, but he's concerned that political action in most of the Americas are not really aiming for organization or a mobilization that is long-term and enduring, and that is like organizing in the sense of political movements. They're concerned about like finding bad apples or voting one candidate in, and this is not helping. He's trying to say. So he's trying to formulate how we're going to get there.
Yeah, in the long run, it's just bad actors in a system that's broken, and it makes it seem like if we fix the bad actors, that everything would be fine, but it wouldn't be fine because the system is screwed up, and it's never going to work, and it's just different ways of highlighting its brokenness. That we're always doing.
So we're going to keep seeing the next podcast how Aaron goes brilliantly changing his opinion in the light of the facts that he gets to know when he reads a new author and he gets this reflection going. And I think that's very interesting. I don't know if there is any other questions from the viewers.
Let me see. Anybody ask anything else they want to ask about this before we move on to
I actually have a question.
Oh, great.
So, yeah, I think might enter in the next episode because I was just thinking that he believes, that data per se being public is not enough and all, but he also, at some point, and I think was after this, he created or participated in Watchdog, right?
Yeah.
So I was wondering where this transition come from, but I guess this will come in the next podcast.
Yeah, the next podcast.
Something changed.
Yeah, and he's gonna be reading things that will inspire him to think what we could do with data that's actually useful, where data makes a difference. That's what Lisa was trying to say too. Like, I don't know if no political change. So that's where he gets his jump of the cats or his better understanding of what could be done with data.
And I think also if we think about when this was being written and all the great visualization tools that were about to happen at the end of the 2000s, that really changed everything, because there was these different visualization tools that you could just point a spreadsheet at them and see things in a more understandable way. And then actually you could see, so in the case of the Atlas of Surveillance, for instance, that the EFF made, where they fed in the same kinds of reports that we feed into the Bad Apple database, they make a geographical map. In fact, that's the point. That's what gave us the idea was, what if we took the bad cop data and plugged it into Atlas of Surveillance visualization tools, and then we could see where all the bad cops are, and we could see them move around, right? That was like the idea behind the whole thing. Bruna, go ahead and go. That's pretty bright.
It got worse, right? It's just because it's gonna get dark soon.
Oh, okay.
So I see the problem coming. Let me
Okay,
just see if I can keep like
yeah, anything so it's not quite bright, so it's not because it's
Ah,
just kind of
okay.
coming right in.
I guess like this should work better. So I'm a bit
Mm,
off center, I guess.
yeah,
Is it
yeah.
better?
No,
It's too bright, right?
just try to make it so your head's not cut off because you're a little bit
Yeah,
close. But
because
I know we'll have to just see the light a little bit. It's better than
yeah, I'm sorry. It's
cutting off
just
your
because
head.
the
No
first sure is
problem at
gonna get
all.
dark and then
No problem at all. So if there aren't any other questions, because we already talked a lot during the presentation, I know I did. And so I don't want to make any more comments. I think everyone's clear on everything. But it's just perfect. It's just exactly the kind of background and the what I'm hoping to do with this podcast, Andre. I just want to say, because we can gradually get ready and we're learning about all this stuff. And then we're going to be all ramped up on Aaron politics 101, when we go into the election, when things get, I'm sure, completely weird, probably, and surreal in in August and September, like they always do. Hi, yay, some people have joined. Thanks for coming on. And so it's perfect. So thank you very much for that talk. I'm really excited. And we'll see you next month, March 16th, I believe. I'm going to double check because I hate to say the wrong date for a whole show and then find out. Yep, March 16th. And that's when we'll be doing part 2 on that. So thank you very much, Andre. And now I wanted everyone to welcome Bruna Shinohara. And she just got her PhD in quantum computing. And she's going to let us know about sort of like Aaron's open source perspective kind of on a lot of these issues and how it relates to something like quantum computing. So take it away, Bruna.
sure. Let me just share my screen. Let me share just a second. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, let me put it full screen.
Great.
All right. So I'm gonna talk a bit. I cannot see you guys now. I'm sorry. So if you guys want to talk,
can you hear us?
Feel free. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. No problem.
All right. So I'm gonna just out of context, just to contextualize, I'll talk a bit more on the Guerrilla Open Access Manifesto. And I want to try to contextualize in the science part and how he talks about the global south, the differences, pretty much just bringing this science science and technology perspective from Aaron Swartz work and how bring a bit also of a personal note on how he inspires me as a scientist. So I'll start, as I said, with Guerrilla Open Access. So there's a bit of text here, and I hope I won't read everything because I guess if you like Aaron Swartz, you're probably familiar with those. I just like to highlight stuff that I think is very pertinent. So, of course, the information is power, but like all power, there are those who want to keep it for themselves. It's probably one of the most hard-hitting quotes from that, and I think about it every day, pretty much. I think it's very, very strong. And I like that there's no much, you don't need to go much further in the text to start reading about how he contextualized in terms of the academia thing, right? The journal, the gatekeeping in terms of the science, right? When he says, want to read the papers featuring the most famous results of science, you need to send enormous amount to publishers like Reed Elsevier. Still like this, unfortunately. Just pick Twitter here that I think is very interesting because it's comparing what it is like for a scientist to publish, he has to pay to make it open access, this thing that they call open access fee. While, for instance, in a Cosmopolitan, other like any normal other type of magazine, you will be paid for your work. So the academia managed to put this itself in a very weird position where we pay to make it open access. There's a lot of prestige and ego making difficult to change that, right? Because everyone wants to publish in Nature and Science, so it doesn't help. It doesn't make easy to change and get away from that. But I just want to point out how this is still evergreen, and those numbers are actually more inflated now. To be honest, I just checked, and most of them just went higher.
It's not even just ego, but government agencies, they have these scores that we have to accomplish to be a good academic producer. Yeah. So if you don't publish there, you don't have the same score.
Yeah, that's another thing. They have a ranking for the journals, and you can see on the bright side, you can see some journals that are fully more embracing the open access, getting better in some sense. Obviously, this varies a lot depending on what science, what are you looking at. I'll talk a bit later of one nice example. But yeah, that's the paradigm in general. So yeah, and here, a bit later, he mentions how there's some people struggling to change this. The open access movement has focused on this at some point. So the scientists don't have to sign their copyrights away, but even so, it's kind of limited. You will maybe just work for future work. It's limited in many, many senses. And I really like this part because it said this, the thing about the gatekeep and not being able to access this to hide our price to pay, forcing academics to pay money, read the work of the colleagues, scanning entire libraries, but only allow folks at Google to read them. This is at a time that Google Books started doing what Project Gutenberg, Internet Archive were doing, but like
Internet Archive showed them how to do it.
Yeah, but now you need to pay to see just like 2 pages in that context. So this is very pertinent at the time. And provide scientific articles to those elite universities in the first world, but not to children in the global south, is outrageous and unacceptable. I really love this this part because it's super nice to see someone from the global north really noticing how this affects like the whole science, and in particular people from the global south. I could go on for ages to just explain the different parts of how different aspects of how science gets kept from conferences, from journals, from many, many aspects. It's very weird to do science and technology from the global south, and it's such a shame. But I really like that he had this view, and unfortunately still very, very relevant. And then, of course, he gives more call to action. And he says that it's not only you could do something about it, but you're morally obliged to do something with your privilege. You have a duty to share with the world, calling in particular students, librarians, scientists, people that have access to journals in this context, right? And what can we do? The company sold the car price, but there's something that we can do. We can fight back. I really like the tone of the guerrilla open access. It's very inflammatory. I feel, yes, let's do it. and some stuff got better, as I was saying. There are some situations where editors quit, like a bunch of people just quit a certain journal in protest of those fees. They would sometimes create their own journals. It happens in some in different levels, and of course different science subjects have different engagements, but it's nice to see.
Yes, and the Internet Archive has a Fat Cat, that's now become Internet Archive Scholar.
Wow.
and they uses the preprint loophole. So a lot of people figured out that they could just use something that isn't officially the final print and could collect all of those all over the world. And so we found little ways, and that was all inspired by Aaron, of course.
Yeah, the preprint is very, very important. So still, in general, you want to look at something that's already peer review and all, but the preprint helped a lot. But then again,
it was better than nothing, right? That's all
exactly.
It was better than nothing.
Yeah, and then again, that's why I say, like, there's a bunch of pressures, as Andres said, from the people giving money to the scientists, from government for whatever. But also, it's a bit a cultural thing, depending on the scientific topic that you have. Some people don't like to release preprints for whatever reason. So this is interesting to see this kind of dynamic as well. And sometimes it's just a bit of bad habits that are just ingrained in some topics, right? Especially that there are some scientific disciplines that are so far removed from reality that they just don't mind. They just don't look at those types of things. So it's interesting to take a look. Because one of these cases that people resigned was a journal that was concerned specifically about science dissemination. So it wouldn't make sense to them as what they are doing to be such to have such higher open access fees. Made a lot of sense to them, but it doesn't make sense to a more abstract thing. But it's always nice to call to action, right? There's
that's
always
the larger argument. That's the larger argument at all. But they make so much money charging for it that they want to charge for it as long as they can. So they're sort of reducing it. They've been forced. These kinds of actions were very effective, actually. They got things done. It took guts.
Yeah, it's not like it goes back at some point to the academia, to the environment of academia, because those kinds of publishers, they have such a higher profit margin, like absurd high. I don't have the numbers here, but it's just more than what you
millions and billions of dollars.
But like in comparison to industries that have large profit margins, they have even larger. It's very absurd. I should have put these numbers here.
Right. It's a perfect model. They don't have to do anything.
Yeah,
the other people write the papers
that someone else did and just publish with a gate-kept way. Is bizarre. Yeah. But anyway, I just want to bring, of course, I didn't went over all the Guerrilla Open Access Manifesto. It has 2 pages. I kind of just stopped more where I think was interesting, but I really like how it mentions academia, and it has a very clear view of inequalities in terms of global north and global south. I think most of the things that Aaron writes is from a very clear perspective, worldview, which I think is very nice, and it's not different for when he talks about academia. So just to tie a bit and talk a bit what goes on in quantum computing, but you can see, I'll point out, but I think you can also see how this reflects in other emerging tech like AI and all. What lessons can be learned, what lessons were learned, or we already learned, and what could be learned yet. Then I'm gonna talk a bit on a more personal note, but yeah, as I said, starting with quantum computing, but also could be generalized for other stuff. So just want to put here some points that, not particular because of this document is, I just think it has a nice view of things, and I think it was spot on when the World Economic Forum put this quantum computing governance principles. They put some things that could be a risk if we don't don't spread information correctly about quantum computers. Maybe I should talk a bit, like quantum computers are a different paradigm for computation, using a bit of quantum physics, and in principle, it should speed up some tasks. So there's investment because of this, but there is also some caveats in particular about information security. There's some stuff that people should keep an eye on. But then again, the quantum computers are still a bit far away. Quantum computers that could do harm to security, information security, are quite far away in terms of technology, but still something that should be said, right? So this part of this document is focused on that. I really liked, so it said misinformation may create unwarranted fears. I think it's general for any technology then again. And skepticism, you see a lot of this also. From an economic point of view, of course, it's World Economic Forum, but I think it's also generally correct. Hype around an asset or industry is potentially problematic because you may underdeliver, people start getting upset, and just when you're trying to gather money for startups, for whatever initiative that you have, maybe the hype will be good for you, but then, as I said, it's more likely to do harm eventually because people, the expectations will simply not be met. Well, one of the things, and then there's more likely that you have something like a AI winter, but for quantum, right?
Yes.
And that's overreaction from policymakers, depending of the hype, possibly resulting in nationalization of quantum computer developments, which is something that I'm gonna talk in particular in a second. Unrealistic expectation progress could lead to perception under delivered, what I said before, and then quantum enter. So all this, I still have something to add about risks of misinformation and disinformation in quantum that I'll do in the next part. But yeah, I'd just like to bring up attention to some of the initiatives. For instance, we have a paper on open hardware in quantum technology. Right now, there are some labs doing it, there's some companies, some big techs, some startups. And sometimes if you wanna run something, you will run in a cloud that may not even be in the same country as you. So open hardware, I think it's interesting to talk about open hardware. Here is just a very minor part of it because they're just saying about how to make specifications to construct chips or this kind of things more open, more easy to replicate and all. It's a progress, I guess. But the nationalization thing is still an issue that I'll talk about in a second. And I think it's not enough if you don't think about popularizing the knowledge for like globally. It doesn't make sense to think open hardware, open source if you don't care about sharing the knowledge from not even the technological knowledge, but just what it is and the possibilities, right? But it's something nice to see that there are so open hardware beyond quantum, right? It's not a new thing, but it's nice to see that quantum, which, well, as a physics thing, it has more than a century. But as a technological field, it's super new. It's kind of new. It just got attention recently. So it's nice to see the direction that this might go. There's also Quantum Open Source Foundation. They have mentorships. They have just a community and prizes and this kind of thing. So I think it's a nice incentive and maybe something that wouldn't come up if it was technological emergent technology from some decades ago or something like this. I think the idea of making a value open source something newer, possibly I could attribute to all those that fought before, including Aaron Swartz and others, right? It's nice to see. So it's important to be aware that we have, and here we can relate to AI, we will eventually have nationalization issues. Because if you think AI is important, if you think quantum is important, they start having closing, stop making, restricting the flow of some manufacturing stuff, semiconductors, and even information. It's very easy to just cut and put a bunch of countries in the dark. It's very easy to do so. It's very easy to do so if you are in a cloud as well. So this is something to pay attention, and something just to always keep in mind that things can be very, the disparity of power is always there for global north, global south, and other countries. Even if it progress in terms of technology, there's always some barriers that go beyond that. It's inevitably geopolitical, right?
Yes, and this is all heating up anyway because of everything going on with Hong Kong, and
absolutely.
It's all just and I'm just learning about it, so I'm just soaking up all this information, because this is the one thing that I've been trying to figure out, like really trying to read up on and trying to figure out for several years, and I'm not going to pretend that I know anything about it. I understand it a little better than I did before, and I understand something like this is a political move, but it's very interesting. Where I'll wait till the end till I ask you my questions, like I did before, just about quantum computing in general.
I guess there's a bunch of things that are justified, but also you can think here I'd say it's fairly justified from a geopolitical instance. China could do the same, and China, I believe, from the materials standpoint, may actually be in better terms, in a better place, because of the things they produce, instruments and all.
In the long run.
Yeah,
I think
they just just have ties with things that make chips easier, I guess. But I'll just bring attention to how easy this can go national, and just close the doors. All the science, open
just
science,
like
open
with
tech,
AI,
it's
very
closing.
concerning. If they were to try to actually limit. I mean, remember, this is the same government that tried to limit encryption. That actually tries to limit, and I think they just tried to do it again last year. They try like every 10 years to limit encryption, because they don't want the average person to have that quality of encryption on their phone. And so it's worth a try, and so with the quantum computing that might actually be able to break quantum computers that might actually be able to break RSA encryption, they want to be the first one to have one, right? They want if there's going to be a quantum computer that's going to break encryption, damn it, the feds want to have it first. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Absolutely. So I think it's a fair preoccupation for all sides. I'm more concerned with the that's
education. It sounds like
education, exactly.
And if we don't do it, if communities like ours don't step up to be like, okay, we're gonna do quantum. Right now, everybody's just figuring out quantum, so it's like you're figuring out at the same time that you're trying to teach people. But there are things that are less technical that are important that you could teach people about quantum, and we got to figure out what they are. And
exactly
people.
But I want to bring attention here. How far behind can we be? And here I'm bringing the example from Brazil.
You can go on. It's fine. You go as long as you want, and if people don't, it's a podcast, so there's no time limit.
Sure. So I'm bringing this because I think it's even more relevant than the geopolitical stuff. I think some part of it is inevitable, but I think this is something that really comes as a moral duty, which is understand how quantum is perceived. For instance, people always quote, like this quote from Feynman, I think I can safely say that nobody understands quantum mechanics, so quantum is seen as this absurd mysterious science. And I would say this is extremely strong in Brazil, even from people inside science, right? Here I'm comparing, for instance, just to illustrate a bit how it differs from Brazil and US. Here is Google Trends. You can look it up, statistics from what people are searching, right? So I compare quantum healing, which is pseudoscientific based on quantum stuff, and quantum computer, which is something real that exists. And
something that
just
exists as opposed to that other airy-fairy bullshit. I mean, let's just
exactly. But yeah, the lines are so hazy. It gets insane.
Good point. Good point. Yeah. Carry on.
And then here's nice because you can see a very well separated situation. People are searching quantum computers much more. They have much more interest than quantum healing, for instance. There's this crazy peak because Google announced quantum supremacy, but in general, you just see it's higher. This is from the last 5 years, yeah. United States, the last 5 years. So there's quite a timeline, so you can really see the pattern. And here's Brazil.
Wow, they're way more interested in it than we are.
Yeah, so you can see at some point quantum healing just it's more than quantum computer. There's much more fluctuation because the way that we search we don't search as often, so you can see more the fluctuations in general. So this is a pattern that you see.
I'm going to have to go look it up now because I don't really know anything.
Yeah, I can show you exactly how to look.
Quantum gets thrown around a lot in the other alternative medicine circles. It's something that they'll throw in when they're selling their crystals or whatever. And I do a lot of alternative medicine myself. I actually do a lot of actual alternative medicine. So I'm not trying to criticize alternative medicine. I'm criticizing people that throw the word quantum in to the description of what they're already selling to make it sound more space age or whatever, right? And
exactly.
That's what quantum healing
I'm not criticizing people, especially I'm not even criticizing people that would look for it, because I think if you don't know what it is, maybe okay, that's nice.
You're looking up everything.
I think it's a very clear metric of scientific literacy for this topic. People are very clearly not interested here and over here. Like here, when I was in Brazil,
it's like we've already given up here
about it. You see pamphlets about quantum healing.
Yeah.
So
it's like everybody's just like, oh, it's magic. Oh, AI is already too hard to understand. AI is something that actually isn't too hard to understand, right?
Yeah. To quantum computer, they do publish like this, even in science communication topics. That's quite like this. But
those papers are impossible to read, though, right? Like an average person can't read those papers.
Oh yeah, right? But it's still, I don't think therefore science communication pieces say, oh, this is spooky. It's not spooky. If you don't want to explain.
I meant the average people. The average person doesn't, and also it's hard to. Why does it matter? Even I would have trouble trying to explain to the average person why quantum computing actually mattered to them, because we're going to be fighting all their battles for them. They're not going to have to fight those battles. So I don't know. It's more just like a wow thing that I talk to kids about and stuff. Kids latch onto it right away. They think it's really interesting.
I'd say quantum computers per se, they are not really relevant, but I work with them. But my thing here, my concern and where my heart is with this whole thing is because, just comparing better, right? This kind of thing. Google complete results for the query, is quantum something? So in English, they just show a bunch of fair questions. Is it real? Is it hard? Is it deterministic, related to science, theoretical, or something?
Right.
And in Portuguese, now here's in Portuguese, but you can look it up later. But 7 out of 10 results are spirituality stuff. So it's
That's
or
weird.
Bible. Yeah, that's the thing. So it is a problem in Portuguese and in
Someone
Brazil.
has a really good marketing campaign in Brazil where they've got people thinking
Yeah,
that there's
I
something, they've made something up,
It would be
yeah.
nice to translate to English so people have an idea of what is
oh
being
yeah,
said there.
Yeah, but
I
it's
can
those
go
kinds of
over.
questions. It's those kinds of questions when you're trying to make a connection, just to put like quantum computing and spirituality. Well, I'm sure somebody somewhere has written about it, right? So you'll
Oh
get the
yeah,
results back.
unfortunately.
And then unfortunately, exactly. And then it's sort of like, it's like asking Google about string theory or something, like you'll get answers,
Exactly.
but you're not going to get the right answer necessarily into that beautiful, I can't even remember it now, but there's a beautiful kind of like 3 or 4 sentence description of string theory that is still technically accurate. And that it's sort of like, so that's what I'm looking for with a lot of this quantum stuff. When it does, I don't want people to be afraid of it. I don't want people to think it's just magic. It's something like AI that might need to have some regulation, but not because it's bad and evil and scary. It's at the same time, the average person is never going to understand it. In this case, quantum computing, I think it's fair to say, quantum computing isn't even one thing. It's all these other things that fall under quantum computing. And so that's what I mean. So these slides that you gave us actually are a great starting point for trying to start at a flat playing field where you basically understand what's on the field, and open source hardware and software, which is a landscape that we understand. And now we can start, building from that and sharing knowledge. And we're doing it early enough to make a difference because this hasn't happened yet. And no one even is waiting for it. We're actually really early right now. I've been waiting for quantum computing since 2015 because of a conversation I had with Chelsea over the prison phone. She got me all hyped up about post-quantum crypto and the need for it because RSA is going to be broken immediately as soon as, because we have quantum computers, the early ones that just go fast. They do more calculations. They can do a bunch of them. And then they have error correction software to fix the guesses. And this will be one of the first things that these quantum computers do. It's not going to be a hard thing for it to do. It's going to be one of the easiest things for it to do. And that will mean that RSA could be broken. Now, ideally, other people will have quantum computers too, right? It won't be like only the bad guys that want to break RSA have one. But that's not really going to help. It doesn't really help the problem. The solution is these post-quantum crypto ellipses and these different kinds of arrays. I'm not going to use the right words, so I'm not going to try to make our existing encryption stronger, like an extra level of protection to make it harder to brute force, basically, I think is what they're trying to do. But even that one scenario, the scary one, unfortunately, is at least the most kind of down to earth. You can wrap your head around it at least, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can be like, okay, you're making tons of guesses for days on end when you brute force something. Quantum can do that faster and correct for the errors. That will be the software that's added to it, and that would be bad. Okay, that's one thing that it could do, because I haven't gotten any other tangible examples of anything else that it would do. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of like, what do you even do with a quantum computer? So yeah, so that's where we're at, and people are just getting used to AI. And they either care or don't care at all about that, right? They just want it to do what they want. They don't really care how it works or the implications, or all. They're kind of like past all that now, I think, most people. So they're really not going to care when quantum happens. And I couldn't even begin to tell you what we need to worry about with quantum. I mean, honestly, that crypto thing, that's all I got. That RSA.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, to be honest.
That's all I got.
No, but that's for sure the main thing. There are some applications, but the application that you should be concerned about is weakening or breaking cryptography. So if I can calm everyone down, like
Yeah,
it will be a long run, both for hardware and correcting the errors will still probably quite in the future. So the thing that I want to bring here, not even for quantum computers, because I think they are doing quite a nice job. If you manage to make people interested like that, much more than, for instance, quantum healing or something, and considering that there are big techs and journal articles, outreach stuff about quantum computer happening, that's, I think, is fine. The thing that makes me completely out of the loop here is that the Portuguese results are so absurdly out of touch. They, as Andrea asked,
you
like
gotta translate some of those so we know what you're talking about. Just translate some right now so we can hear what they are.
So yeah, first one, quantum physics, science. Second one, is it proved? Is it proven? But after that, quantum physics and spirituality, quantum physics and the law of attraction, the one from The Secret.
Yeah.
Oh
Coach.
no, the law of attraction. Yeah.
Exactly. And then
that's a big
quantum
cult
physics
out
and
here.
God, quantum physics, spirituality, quantum physics and the Bible, quantum physics and fate. There's one about neuroscience, but it's pretty much all about spirituality or some sort of other
Somebody's getting
thing.
this from church. Seems like.
Yeah, I feel like I want to investigate this better. I want to understand, but I believe, and that's the point that I would like to hammer home here, that the issue in Portuguese is just that there isn't enough open content about it. In English, even though we would like to reach better and all, when you have a content that's really pedagogical, generally in English, or people translate to English, it's where every information flows to. While in languages like Portuguese, people don't care. Even people that are working in Portuguese, they sometimes don't care enough to do content in Portuguese. And that's something that I like to show. This is, for instance, what you find if you search for quantum physics on Instagram. And I
understand. How is that quantum physics?
I can you can feel the vibe too, even if you don't understand Portuguese. And I can tell you that I'm not sure about the first one, but all the others are just spirituality stuff. And that's the pattern. If you search for quantum physics in Instagram at any given time, and for sure TikTok as well, you're gonna find spirituality stuff in Portuguese.
Would you say that they're more religious? Is it pretty much a lot of religious people in Brazil more than the United States?
We have quite a lot of religious people too. I don't think that much of a difference. We have a lot of well, I don't know, to be honest. Do you know?
Yeah, it just hasn't hit our cults yet, I guess. Is it? That's what,
yeah,
if you've got that law of attraction stuff there, it sounds like yeah. So
I guess that might be one of the reasons. I think the book The Secret was popular in Brazil. I remember having to watch the movie at some point in high school.
Yeah.
Like in school. It doesn't make any sense.
Hijack search terms. You know,
is
what it is. Somebody hijacked the quantum term.
It is insane to even try to produce, because that's my thing in Portuguese. I try to produce content about quantum physics, and it's horrible to fight people using the same hashtag as you with a much more cool image because it's like those spiritual images. So it's very hard to find.
Yeah.
Interesting. And this is, of course, this very general for other stuff, right? Sorry.
The question you made, the majority of Brazilian population is Catholic, but there is a very strong Protestant movement in Brazil. And most of it is connected somehow with this prosperity theology. Like if you are rich, it's because God favors you. Oh, and it's a very fertile grounds to this kind of propaganda of law of attraction, of you want to be successful, you have to go hard and believe in it. And this kind of thing is always related to this new age religion kind of thing that happens in Brazil a lot. Like hippie movements, but they are like in many different religion fields, like spiritism and this Buddhists, and they have these small pockets of believers that they really hatch on, grab on this idea of quantum physics as explaining the universe and religion and God.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, which is just so it is just a new wrapper on the old thing, like I was saying before, in terms of giving people, these people that that are looking for something to give them all the answers, they'll take what you're giving them if they want it bad enough. And I think that so a lot of the marketing has just been hijacked. So you can find the science stuff, right? You just have to have a good query.
Yeah,
you can find it.
In my situations, like, I'm trying to be found. It's hard. Like when you produce, you're really fighting for the same spaces as those people. To the point that when I was talking about quantum computers, people say, "Oh, this is mysticism." I was like, "No, this is not mysticism." It's
wow, there's a whole like actual disinformation campaign almost too, because it's just such good cult marketing out there. Yeah, and I do think
I would say this happened spontaneously, which is the sad thing. I would say like not fully spontaneous. Of course, there are interests behind. Spiritualize everything, but I think this is mainly due a lack of care, in particular for quantum physics. I think there's a bunch of things, there's structural things, education stuff in Brazil, but also there's this kind of mentality that physics is unexplainable.
But that's true. But that's actually
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Remember how I was telling you that the funny thing that happens to me is that everybody argues when people are arguing about quantum, or not quantum mechanics. I was talking about quantum computing. When people talk about quantum computing, quantum mechanics is a thing. And I don't know if they understand it or not, but it's a definite like thing, right? The quantum computing is more than one thing. It covers a bunch of stuff, and you could be talking about this thing over here, and somebody can be talking about this thing over there, and you're arguing about something, but you're arguing about two different things. And it's really, it takes a while to get there, to realize, oh, we're talking about two different things. And you have to have somebody that's dedicated into trying to get to the bottom of it, right? Because if you just disagree, you could just be like, oh, I just disagree with that person and not. So I had to have conversations where people stuck it out to realize we're talking about two different things. And then I realized, then when I hear other people talking about quantum computing, I will wait to let them get to the point when they're talking about two different things. And almost always people are talking about not the same thing. It's not always two opposite things or whatever, but it really depends on your background, what you are even talking about. And it has to be very specific things. So that's the one thing that I did learn is that, you need to, especially for somebody like me who's a novice and not an expert, you may think that you are, even the questions that you've asked, but that's why my questions keep getting refined, because so many of the questions didn't even make sense that did the first time. So quantum mechanics, quantum computing, and then open source for quantum computing. Do you have a recommendation as far as where someone might start if they were actually going to start reading about this stuff?
I could definitely pick.
It depends on what you're trying to do, right?
That's the thing, yeah.
Okay.
Sure. I think I just bring back this quote because I think some scientists and some journalists hide behind it. They're like, oh, quantum is, no one understands this, so why bother? But then the issue for me is that people are paying money with quantum healing in Brazil. You see how we can get really a big disparity, just how the global south takes the worst outcome ever. Because people really use this almost as a religion, and just because people don't produce content enough because they think quantum is ununderstandable, you end up with stuff really abysmal like that.
That will tend to happen too, and there's more religion. The people that were raised Catholic or Protestant and then break away from it often end up in some other kind of organized religion. They still have that thing they want to be a part of, feeling for whatever reason. So again, there could be a lot of technical reasons too why this is only happens in Brazil, as far as like maybe selling words that doesn't. But why don't you go ahead and move on and show us the rest of your slides so we can.
I wanted to ask a question too.
Sure.
Could you compare like quantum physics as a new nuclear physics? It's like something new that may have a very big potential to change the society of the world, but it's usually understood as hype now. Like one day there was toothpaste with uranium and all these kind of things that the world with atoms will be very different. You have to understand nuclear physics. But they didn't really get it, and now we have this as something normal, like energy being made with uranium, and they use it in medical devices and things like that.
Absolutely.
That's also before they figured out people don't have to understand it.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's better if they don't understand it if you're trying to control them. So it was a process, right?
That's the thing. Yeah, there's also another issue with no one understands. This is very easy way out any conversation. If no one understands, we don't discuss, right? I think nuclear had a similar stuff. As nuclear was used for war, then people started getting confused of, for instance, how nuclear can be used for energy. And then it became a political thing to be against nuclear in general. There's a lot of issues with how this was communicated as well. And
we had some bad accidents. We almost had 3 Mile Island. We had 3 Mile Island. It could have been a lot worse. It was probably worse than they told us anyway. And
but still, nuclear is still, if you look at the statistics, crazily enough, nuclear is one of the safest in terms of fatalities.
Right.
But
that's because it's been 30 years.
It.
Right. But it was covered up when we did have fatality. There was like 4 people that died in the 70s in a Swedish accident. What happened was that they actually got better. It's like more concrete pretty much, but there's more to it than that. But they basically built better systems.
Sure.
And it has gotten better, but yeah, it was easy to just be against all of it. I was a kid. It was easy to just be against all of it because you were the nuclear power at the time was not safe. They were having all these issues and it wasn't safe. And then the nuclear bombs were something that had been, we just had the nuclear bomb already. They weren't even giving us duck and cover or anything like that. We were just supposed to not trip on it. When I was in kindergarten, hearing about nuclear bombs, it's kind of crazy. Oh, don't worry, they're not going to go. It's not going to happen. Was what they told us, So it's funny how things progress. How you go from World War II, duck and cover, and then Vietnam, where they actually had cameras at the war. Like you watch the war at night on your TV. Well, that didn't work out so well because people became against the war. So they don't do that anymore. That's what they did during the Iraqi war with George W., but it was all staged. So we got to see things from the war, but it wasn't actual footage from the war. It was something they staged. They staged rescues. They staged all sorts of stuff to give us a nice show every night when we watched the news. This was in 2003. So it's interesting to see the progression. So now they figured out, just don't tell them anything. Just let them watch it.
The discourse stays in the same place. That's the thing. That people don't update.
Even
to
with
say, the nuclear reactors are better now. We like Fukushima, for instance. Don't build a nuclear reactor in a place that has earthquakes.
Right. Which is kind of like, God, it's funny that they did that, but I'm saying in terms of quantum and AI and the average person, right? With AI, you have all the movies that's given them a sort of a false impression, if you will, of what AI is. They think that AGI is AI, and they think that AI has more brains than it does, and they're being lied to constantly, and apparently no one's going to do anything about it. So they think it's that AI is different, and I think we are going into another AI, AI winter. But my point is, as far as the average person is concerned, they're fine. I mean, they know about it, they don't know about it. They're not that worried about it. When you talk to them, they like the stuff. They like being able to make pretty pictures just by describing it, right? They like that. They like that part. And they're told not to worry that it's obviously not real actually generating, original art all the time. But I think with quantum, it's a non-starter. I mean, there's nothing to even talk to the average person about with that. They hear the word, maybe they saw it on TV or something. But it doesn't really matter to them yet. And I'm certainly not capable of explaining it if it did. So that, there's no place for it to go. So that's why I'm trying to get in early, and the people that care, can learn gradually. And then because things are going to happen quickly, I think the AI thing is going to happen, and then quantum's going to happen. AGI will happen. I mean, it's really, it's not 2 to 3 years like people are saying. I don't even know why they're saying that. They know better. It's 5 to 10 years. There's going to be some significant AI stuff, that AGI stuff happening. And you combine that with quantum. And I mean, there's nothing to say to the average person. There's almost nothing to say to me. I mean, we know so little now as far as what will be happening then. You know what I mean? Even though it's 5, 10 years away at the most.
I think I believe, and this is something that I try to do, is to at least have something that people can refer to. So with the issues that we barely have anything for quantum physics, there's actually quantum physics debunking stuff in Portuguese. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have in other languages as well, because we rely in English content, and not everyone speaks English. So I think it's not that we need to talk to every person about quantum physics, particularly not about quantum computers. But I think one of the risks of awareness that they talk a lot about how the companies will not be able to make money if you have too much hype. But I think the real issue, and the issue that I see from my home country, is being hijacked, the weaponization of the ignorance. I think it's profoundly sad.
Yeah, this
is something that I care much, much more, Sorry.
We have a big problem with that here in the United States. I mean, that's how a lot of things are just done now, weaponizing ignorance. And it's a combination of keeping information away and absolutely just lying to people, even if someone's going to get hurt. And I'm not shocked by it as much as I used to be, but it's still, I'm still surprised that it's just happened. It's just something we deal with, and that it's making people just believe. It's harder. People are hesitant to believe anything these days. That is a big thing, because it could just be a fake, which is good. You got to check the fake. That's good. But it is this thing that you have to do now before you can, almost feel anything. Like if something happened, did that happen? Oh, they blew up a hospital. Did they blow up a hospital? And then the other side will be like, it's just it's a back and forth with real and mixed in fake stuff. And you'd have to check it one by one. And I don't know if I could actually check it effectively anyway. So you just kind of get numb to it.
That's
what
true.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
And so, Yeah. So let's move on just so we can finish up.
Sure. Yeah. I
But
guess
it is an issue, and I'm glad that you brought it up, and it's something that we'll be working on in terms of like how do we get the word out to people, not just about quantum computing, but like other things that it's important that they know when there is a huge wall of disinformation on the other side that's already believed, if you will. That they've done gradually, so it's just something to think about. Oh, look, the bullshit asymmetry principle. It sounds like a perfect transition. Carry on.
Yeah, that's just to emphasize that even if you try to produce content, it's very hard to debunk once it's spread. There's the whole thing about misinformation spreading like 6 times faster. The thing that I think brings everything together. There's some take-home message from what I said, right? Maybe I just listed. So the science are affected by the lack of open access in a very particular way. As I said, mostly because of the way journals work, and it's very nice that Aaron commented about it, right? The global south is particular affected by lack of access. Once again, journals and also conference and all the things. Very nice that Aaron brought this to attention. I think at some point he mentions about research in India, something like this. And it's nice because every time that I look for the guerrilla open access, there are people from India commenting. I think it really hits to people from the global south. I think this is a very important message. Quantum as an industry is relatively new, as I said, not as a science, but definitely as an industry. And it may have the chance to do some stuff differently in a sense. In open content, science communication is important to fight misinformation in a democratic way. Here is saying for even global north and global south. And I was saying that I wanted to bring a more personal note to this is just because for me, what always hit for me is the fact that people are dismissive with misinformation in science, in particular about quantum, where I was from the environment that I was. And then this started bringing me the attention to the issue of open science, which brought me to the Institute Aaron Swartz in Brazil and how I met Andre and all these things and how I started reading more about Aaron Swartz. So yeah, I just want to bring the perspective from both from global north, south, and from the science perspective and how I think his ideas are they really make you want to act and do something about it. And I think that's very nice.
Yeah, he's really good at positioning things in such a way that you see the thing that he wants you to do.
Yeah.
Too.
You got fired up.
And you're like, exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much. That was really incredible, and touched on a lot of different really important things, and really appreciated it. Do you have any other questions? Anything you wanted to bring up, Andre, before we call it a day? We had a good show. I can't think of anything, to be honest. What were you going to say?
I was going to ask Bruna if she thinks that there is a space for more this kind of science publicity, what do you call it in English? Awareness?
Outreach?
Outreach, yeah. In traditional ways of communication, like is there space for it in TV, or it's just something like people have to do by themselves on the internet? Is there a way to find, I don't know, a radio program that will talk about science? Or it's impossible, you just have to be the individual creators in internet?
I think there are some nice things that I see happening. For instance, now people are caring about science outreach to the point that there are some incentives from universities, from governments to care about stuff. In particular, quantum in Brazil as an industry is super, super new. So they're starting to care about as an industry, which might help with the quantum healing stuff in another way, right? I think from individual level, I believe we go far if you go as a group, of course. But the social media changed a lot the dynamics. So now you see people talking about complex mathematical stuff in a way that's super dynamical, which people some years ago say, oh, this person's being super superficial, so it's not worth it. But now I see people that are like math professors doing science communication in a way that's very efficient and they go viral and super nice. There's a person that was in RuPaul's Drag Race, that she's a mathematician, or I think he, their pronouns are, I think it's the he. But it's the most amazing content about math in drag. So it's something that calls a lot of attention, and there's a very fun and nice way to communicate. That wouldn't be possible if social media was in a different way. So it's positive, but it's negative. But I think it's
What's the
important for us
negative?
to
It
try
sounded,
to.
yeah, it sounds all positive to me. I didn't hear
Yeah, I
this
guess
part.
it's negative because we cannot deny the statistics that misinformation spreads faster.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that goes with the dynamics of social media as it is now,
Yeah. I thought you were
and
talking
other
about that,
factors, right? So it's
that
hard.
particular show.
We may sometimes just say, oh, maybe we could get rid of all the social media, but no, there's also things that we can do. And another thing that we can do is to shine a light to these people, like share their content and make it as public as possible. We are kind of gathered creating the content that we want to see in social media by liking and sharing. So we can make use of this dynamic, right?
Yes, and we actually do want to do some translations. The Internet Archive, I can't remember if it was Mark. It might have been Mark Ground from the Wayback Machine, but they have a lot of stuff they can do with translations now. And they have a Rosetta Stone of sorts. And that made me think, oh, we got to translate the website into other languages, right? Could have Aaron Swartz Day, Brazil, Aaron Swartz Day. That would be Aaron Swartz Day / country, and then that country, right? Like Craigslist or something, right? But for all these different countries. And I'm hoping somebody might do that as a hackathon project this year. But I'm going to try to put everything together in a little project that someone could do, because the AI, and like I said, the AI was doing this last year. It was last November that the presentation was. So by the time of this year's event in November, it'll probably be even better. But I think this is really important. The Aaron Swartz Day community, we have a huge following in Brazil. We always have. And it's just been really, it's always been an important part of the community. And I've always wanted to. I've been lucky that you've been able to translate various documents at different times. People have translated. I think the Guerrilla Open Access Manifesto itself was one of the things that's translated. And that's a great way to, in our own community, which is very international, I think translations is one of the way that I'll be able to get more, build more community and get truly international. It's real easy to be international when you're speaking English and everyone else figures it out, right? It's another thing to be like, we're an international organization and actually provide things in other languages for your people that, right? So that's what I'm trying to truly become an international organization that's actually working with people, that has people from our sister organizations on the show, and that is drawing people in on this very important year. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Wonderful presentations by both of you. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll see everybody on March 16th, where we'll have part 2 of Andre's talk and another guest that I haven't figured out yet, but there's lots of different things that we're going to talk about. So for now, thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.
See you.
See you soon.